In the heart of New York City, ablaze with lights, where dreams are constructed and broken in the blink of an eye, Julian Warwick, heir to the Warwick Enterprises empire, believed he had conquered every summit. With vast wealth at his disposal, a pregnant wife by his side, and the admiration of high society, his life seemed flawless. Yet a single moment of blind passion plunged him into a maelstrom of betrayal, shaking the very foundations of the world he had so carefully built. This story is not merely about the downfall of one man. It is also about the journey to rediscover the light through a mother's love and the redemptive power of atonement. Alright, before you settle in, take a sec to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely vibing with what I'm putting out here. And drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a thrill to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe. Julian Warwick was born within walls gilded in gold, the air heavy with the scent of imported perfumes and fresh flowers. His Manhattan was not the noisy streets, but the glittering ambition housed in the Upper East Side mansion. From boyhood, he was taught to stand tall, to offer just the right smile, to gaze unflinchingly into the future his family had charted, to inherit the throne of commerce, to uphold the crown of influence. Each morning, Julian awoke in a lavishly appointed chamber, soaring ceilings, emerald green velvet drapes cascading down, a crystal chandelier scattering countless pinpoints of light. Beyond the window, the rush of car engines pulsated like a relentless drumbeat. Yet inside, the silence was almost terrifying. The butler would place a silver tray upon the bedside table, an impeccably proportioned, nutritionally balanced breakfast, every morsel vetted by the family's nutritionist. Precise, regimented, alpine in its chill. Julian sat straight on an antique mahogany chair, sipping chamomile tea in measured sips. In the muted glow, he stared at the silver spoon embossed with the Warwick Enterprises logo, as if it whispered a never-ending reminder. You are an asset. You are efficiency. You are the image. His father, Victor Warwick, often stood by the door, countenance stern as a sword's blade. Whenever their eyes met, Victor would simply nod, rarely praising, even more rarely enfolding his son in an embrace. Academic accolades, aptitude tests, boardroom presentations, every endeavor demanded perfection. To fail was unthinkable. To falter was unforgivable. Down the corridor, Julian's mother, Eleanor, watched in silence. She wore an ivory silk gown, hair elegantly coiled atop her head, but her eyes, soft in the corners, bore the fine lines of worry. Eleanor never proclaimed her love aloud. Instead, she showed it through carefully selected psychology books, private art lessons in watercolor, and gentle affirmations. You did very well today, Julian. Her voice was a warm autumnal melody. Yet deep within, she understood. Even the tenderest words could not fill the void between obligation and desire in her son's heart. Julian soon discovered that each radiant smile before the crowd, clients, partners, the press, was but a crystal mask. Beneath it, his heart hammered and sometimes clenched with anguish. Standing before the mirror, he'd wearily straighten his navy tie and wonder, will they ever remember my name, not merely the Warwick legacy? For all the family's affluence, all its far-reaching renown, Julian remained a small, shadowed figure in the family portrait, standing behind the flagpole, dwarfed by the family's towering influence. Responsibility draped over him like invisible armor. In closed-door meetings, he would perch on the edge of an oversized chair, chin propped on his hand, listening to market analysts. Cold sweat trickled down his temples. He recorded every statistic, every projection. Yet when the lights dimmed and the boardroom fell silent, Julian would clutch drafts of his own humanitarian initiatives, community-driven technologies, social impact ventures, and wonder if his family would ever permit him to pursue them, or if such economically unviable ideas would be trampled underfoot. Beneath Manhattan's crimson-tinged sky at dusk, Julian strolled through the side garden of the mansion. Golden maple leaves drifted lazily across the cobbled pathway. He paused, inhaled the cool evening air, eyes following a single leaf as it spun before settling on the ground. In that instant, a proud loneliness arose within him. He was both a cherished child and a solitary figure amid a forest of Warwick insignias. That emptiness sparked a fierce yearning, to be seen as a person, not merely a moving emblem of an empire. Once, wandering into the family's private library, he passed shelves of fairy tales, stories of wanderers seeking themselves in unfamiliar lands. He imagined himself as the protagonist, abandoning a gilded destiny to roam the world and discover his true self. Yet mere minutes later, he shivered at the thought of his father's disappointed gaze. The name Warwick quivered before the spectral silhouette of freedom, enticing yet merciless. Each night before sleep claimed him, Julian scrawled a few trembling lines in his journal. Today I made my mother laugh for the first time in months. It felt like happiness, though fleeting. Those shaky words were his whispered confession. In that very moment, he realized his path lay not in flawless days, but in the quest to reclaim his own identity, between a dazzling world and his hidden dreams. Julian Warwick, the son of a majestic mansion and resounding renown, began to understand that high society might bestow glory, but it could also imprison the heart. Amid the dazzling lights and opulent festivities, what he craved most was not praise, but understanding. One non-judgmental gaze, one heartfelt word. And on that journey toward self-discovery, Julian moved forward, captivating yet uneasy, but more whole than ever before. Julian stepped into marriage with Sophia Langley, as if opening a gate to a fragrant paradise. At 27, he had just completed his MBA at Harvard, a golden ticket into the realm where wealth and fame exchanged handshakes. Sophia, the daughter of a distinguished senator, shone like a star among the political elite. Their wedding at the most opulent hotel in the Hamptons became the talk of every glittering salon, from gilded ballrooms in Washington, D.C., to lavish estates in Los Angeles. On the morning of the ceremony, pale sunshine filtered through diaphanous white veils. It illuminated the peonies bursting into bloom. Sophia, beautiful as a fairy tale princess, wore a pearl white gown with exquisitely pleated taffeta. Her face held a delicate smile. Her eyes sparkled like fireflies on a summer night, washing away every trace of Julian's fatigue and worry. Hand in hand, they glided down the scarlet carpet, like rare swans beneath 1,000 lenses and the flash of cameras. The symphony's triumphant chords mingled with words of blessing. They rose like an anthem celebrating a new life together. At the ring exchange, Julian felt his heart hammer wildly. He stared deep into Sophia's eyes, windows to love, compassion, and unwavering faith. She had granted him the peace he had longed for all those years. Not his father's dry commendations, nor the high society gazes of inspection, but the gentle warmth of shared affection, the soft smile in moments of uncertainty. Applause thundered, shattering the hush. It marked their official union, an impeccable power couple, admired by all. Their early days of marriage unfurled like an endless summer vacation. Together, they strolled along dawn-lit shores, bare feet sinking into fine sand. They dined at cozy bistro tables, savoring fine wine amid gentle melodies. She spoke of Sunday afternoons spent at orphanages, while he excitedly revealed ambitious plans with European partners. They laughed, they reveled, they believed no ocean could ever part them. Yet, after only 2 years, cracks began to form in that picture. Julian threw himself into high-profile deals, acquiring luxury hotel chains in Asia, investing in cutting-edge technology, expanding Warwick Enterprises' venture capital fund. The pressure from his father intensified. The refrain's success or failure echoed in his mind daily. He was perpetually airborne, shuttling between financial capitals, absent from family dinners and late-night conversations with his wife. Sophia, patient and considerate, initially yielded. She understood her husband's demanding career. But over time, that distance widened into an impassable chasm. He returned home late, hair tousled, eyes shadowed. She would ask with just a look, "How was your day?" Only to receive a hurried shake of the head before he plunged back into stacks of briefs. When Sophia announced she was pregnant, they both burst into an indescribable joy. Julian held her close. His heart felt ready to burst. He believed himself the luckiest man alive. The prospect of new life convinced him he had finally found a higher purpose than any business venture, the love and responsibility of fatherhood. But that joy was fleeting. As her due date drew nearer, their bond revealed an ever-deepening estrangement. Sophia yearned for a warm dinner, a genuine embrace, a promise that he would not leave her alone. He answered with tender assurances, but only for fleeting moments before duty called him away again. She sat alone in their expansive living room. The pale yellow light streaming through wide windows amplified her loneliness. Julian suffered too. In rare, quiet moments, he gazed at a photograph of his mother, Eleanor, in her youth, her eyes alight with wonder as she cradled her firstborn. He wondered if that maternal glow could heal his own marriage. But when he called home, heard Sophia's tremulous voice reporting another wave of morning sickness, he could only promise, "I'll come back soon," before hanging up to honor his unyielding schedule. One afternoon, Sophia stood by the window, cradling her bump, eyes fixed on the endless blue of the harbor. A breeze tousled her hair, revealing hollowed cheeks etched with fatigue. She sighed softly. "Darling, do you see me here?" Julian, tapping at his phone to finalize a meeting, glanced up, then swept his gaze across the crowded calendar on his desk. His eyes paused for a heartbeat, then drifted past her, almost as if she were meant to be mere decoration. Julian's conscience convulsed. He knew he was slipping away from the wife who carried their life's warmth within her. The vision of Sophia's hopeful smile as she awaited their child pierced him with guilt. Yet work, prestige, and family expectations roared in his head. "Keep advancing. Do not slow." When night fell, their two shadows cast on the bedroom wall looked like parallel worlds. Sophia turned away, burying her face in her pillow, stifling a sob. Julian sat on the floor by the window, eyes glazed. In that moment, he realized, though married, they were as strangers adrift on a vast sea. She carried a nascent life. He carried a burdensome empire. In the silence, Julian whispered, "I've lost my way." He understood that if he did not pause and change course, they would be lost forever. And the greatest tragedy would not be a failed marriage, but the child who, growing up, would never understand why her father was always absent. In that moment, Julian Warwick, heir of Warwick Enterprises, faced the most pivotal choice of his life: to keep pursuing success, or to turn back and reclaim the true love waiting in the arms of the wife he had left behind. Valentina appeared beneath the warm golden lights of the Miami art auction house, like a sudden sunbeam breaking through the night. Julian stood rooted before a $1 million abstract painting as she drew near. Tall and slender as a model, her honey blonde hair cascaded over her shoulders, illuminating the entire corner of the room. Valentina's smile, simple yet enchanting, made Julian feel his heart skip a beat. For the first time, he met someone unshadowed by the Warwick name, someone who cared not for family prestige, but who was utterly absorbed by color, texture, and the hidden story behind each work of art. Their eyes met in a fleeting moment. She was recounting a tale to a European collector, crystal lights dancing on her golden strands like spun honey. Julian paused, leaning in to listen as she described her journey through Tibet, watching the sun rise atop Everest, each breath forging a moment of magic in the ice. She painted images of winding mountain trails, chance encounters with leather artisans, the bright smiles of local children. Each word she spoke brimmed with passion, making him forget the sharp tang of his wine, forget the whispers around them. "Have you ever considered leaving it all behind to chase the one piece of art that speaks to your soul?" she asked, voice warm and curious. Julian smiled wryly, cheeks flushing. "I did, before I realized I bore the Warwick name." Her words halted her mid-step, her eyes reflecting sympathy. Under the glow of the crystal chandelier, two people from opposing worlds discovered a shared longing to live authentically, unshackled by familial duties or expectations. The next morning, Julian found a message on his phone. "Thank you for last night's conversation. If you're free, meet me at the Hidden Bar, 23 Crosby Street. Promise I'll make up for those interrupted moments." The words were brief, but ignited an uncommon thrill within his chest. That very night, through Soho's hushed, shadowed alleys, Julian slipped into the tucked-away bar, where candlelight fluttered, a raspy saxophone wafted through the air, and scents of oak and herb mingled gently. In the farthest corner, Valentina awaited him, her eyes blazing like embers. They sat close, each nursing a peach-toned cocktail fizzing with soda, proof of emotions on the brink of overflow. Valentina asked nothing of Warwick Enterprises, nothing of the billions he carried. Instead, she listened as he spoke of childhood dreams, sketching the world with chalk pastels, hearing the Himalayan winds whisper through the peaks, choosing his own path freely. His voice cracked at times, under the weight of years spent suppressing emotion, under the glare of the Warwick legacy. An elegant prison upon his heart. Valentina's hand settled lightly on his forearm, her gaze full of understanding. "Freedom isn't the absence of responsibility," she whispered, "but choosing responsibility with your own heart." Julian felt her words touch the deepest places in his soul. For the first time, he laid bare his loneliness, and for the first time, he need not hide it. Amid the soft haze of smoke and the mellow rhythm of jazz, he realized he was no longer alone. Their subsequent meetings grew ever more clandestine. They wandered silent galleries hand in hand, bathed in the museum's gentle spotlight over marble sculptures. They strolled through Chinatown, inhaling scents of cinnamon roasting and sweet milk tea. Daytime messages. "I miss you. Where are you tomorrow?" sent his heart racing. He knew each rendezvous, each smile from Valentina, carried him closer to a moral precipice. Between his duty as an expectant husband and the yearning of a heart craving freedom. Then, one evening, beneath the moonlit waters of Biscayne Bay, Julian and Valentina stood on the deck of a cruise yacht. Waves murmured beneath them. The breeze toyed with her hair. Valentina turned, eyes shining, lips curving into a hopeful smile. "You may have to choose soon, but whatever you decide, you won't go alone." Julian's voice caught. He pictured Sophia waiting for their firstborn, the father he was meant to be, and beside him, Valentina, who had opened a door to the truest emotions in his heart. Miami's night sky held only the sound of waves and the drumbeat of Julian's heart. Within him, two paths diverged, a sacred duty to family and unborn child, or a boundless life of creativity and liberty with Valentina. Her arrival was like a fresh gust of wind, rekindling his ambition, yet it also revealed the noose he wore, between the Warwick spotlight and the call of his own heart. And in that moment, Julian understood that the journey back to himself would never be easy, but at least he would not walk it alone. The relationship between Julian and Valentina began like a refreshing breeze. It soon swelled into a raging storm. Their secret rendezvous did not merely unfold beneath Miami's glittering auction house lights. They extended up into the sky-high penthouse apartments of Chicago, where floor-to-ceiling windows captured the city's twinkling lights like a field of stars. There, amid thick Persian rugs and Italian leather sofas, Julian and Valentina discovered another world, one uncharted by the Warwick name, expansive, liberating, utterly their own. Valentina would often await him in the living room's corner, warm amber light setting her honey blonde hair aflame, making him feel as if he'd stepped into a classical painting. She would loosen her slim shoulders in a delicate silk gown, glide to the crystal bar cart, and pour him a single glass of pure red wine. Without an invitation, she would brush back his hair and whisper, "The world outside is so loud. Can't you hear it?" Julian would nod, his heart constricting. Beyond the window, cars thundered past in ceaseless traffic. But here, there was only Valentina's breath and the soft strain of jazz slipping through the walls. Then they journeyed to Seattle. In a black, gleaming car, Julian drove over Chicago's Golden Gate Bridge on a misty night, each raindrop tapping the windshield like a soft percussion. Valentina sat beside him, offering a mysterious smile, her gaze tracing the blurred streetlights. "I've always wanted to come here," she said, voice quivering. "To hear the rain on that old ship's deck, to smell oak and the crisp scent of frost." He gripped the wheel tighter, a sense of adventure laced with guilt surging through him. At a boutique hotel nestled in the Northwest's historic district, they lived as though past and future did not exist, just 2 days of pure escape. Julian made business calls from the hotel bar, but his voice sounded distant, as if emerging from another world. Each time he bent to kiss Valentina, he saw her smile glow by the tiny fireplace, stirring feelings deeper than any boardroom strategy. Yet each stolen moment also made him acutely aware of the fracture growing in Sophia's heart, the wife who carried their unborn child. Earlier, Sophia had assumed her husband's absences were simply the cost of important projects. She spent afternoons by the Manhattan window, hand on her belly, watching the Staten Island ferry glide by. Occasionally, she texted Julian, "Are you okay? I miss you." The messages went unanswered. In the opulent apartment, only the ticking clock remained. A creeping chill seeped through brick walls and pressed against her heart. One morning, an anonymous email arrived in Sophia's inbox. Subject line, "The truth you need to know." She opened it to find 2 photographs of Julian and Valentina, gently lifting wine glasses in a Las Vegas nightclub. Red neon light painting them both in eager laughter, as though the world existed only for them. Her heart felt sliced by a blade. Tears streamed unbidden as raw emotions surged. She set the phone down, drawing in a shaky breath, but her heart pounded like it would burst from her chest. That afternoon, Sophia returned to the Manhattan apartment Julian once called home. She walked the hallway. Each painting seemed to watch, each rug to remind her. This was where their vows once lived. Her hand trembled as she knocked on the door. Julian opened it, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You're home early," he said, voice composed yet strained. His smile looked forced. Sophia said nothing. She stepped into the living room, raised her phone to display the blurred image. "Explain this," she said softly, her tone sharp as a blade. Julian froze. He studied the photo, then gazed at Sophia's anguished face. The 2 pictures were the epitome of every excuse unmasked. Busy with a deal was no longer believable. He shook his head quickly. I'm sorry. You've misunderstood. That wasn't what you think. It was just a meeting with a partner in Vegas." Sophia let out a bitter laugh. "A partner? One doesn't retreat to a VIP booth and share wine merely for business." Her voice cracked, tears welling anew. But Julian persisted. He grabbed her arm, attempting to draw her close. "I swear it's not infidelity. I'm just trying to balance everything." Sophia brushed him away, gaze turning to ice. Balance? What about our child? What about me? I cannot endure another lie. She spun and strode toward the door, her silk gown sweeping like a breaking wave. She slammed the door behind her. The crash echoed through the luxury apartment, leaving Julian stranded in a hollow silence. Stunned, he dashed to the great window, peering down at the bustling Manhattan streets. Beneath the twilight glow, his reflection stared back, a lost specter. He bowed his head, trembling as he rapped on the door. Sophia, please, give me a chance to explain. His plea met only cold silence. He glanced down at the coffee table, where the phone still displayed the damning image. A guilt that could not be denied. That night, Julian did not sleep. He sat on the hardwood floor, hair tousled, eyes unfocused. A faint jazz melody drifted from the next room, conjuring memories of nights with Valentina. He shuddered. The affair had been a bloom of luminous petals, yet it also left a ruthless wound in his wife's heart. Duty as a husband, responsibility as a father, yearning for freedom, all tangled into a tormenting knot, suffocating him. By morning, Sophia was gone. He discovered a letter on the kitchen island. Please live your life as you choose. Our child and I will be fine. Beneath her words lay an ultrasound photo stamped in bold ink. Julian stared until he could no longer comprehend. What had he lost most? Career, prestige, or the true love he once held? His phone rang. A new message from Valentina. I miss you. Are you okay? Julian hesitated. His fingers trembled over the screen. Between two worlds, between two women, he stood motionless, heart in chaos. And in that moment, Julian understood. This scandal was not merely a crack in his marriage. It was the echo of a painful choice: continue chasing a gilded life, or turn back to reclaim the love he had already betrayed. Despite the warnings like a headwind, Julian quietly prepared for his wedding to Valentina, a decision that lacerated his life like a knife. Each white rose petal was placed upon the yacht's deck. Their golden centers flickered like embers in the stillness of the night sea. Twinkling lights draped overhead, creating a dreamlike aura as if stars had been scattered across the water's reflection. Yet Julian's heart sensed only vast emptiness. No laughter of close friends, no loving gaze from his mother, and no blessing from his father, Victor Warwick, who had always taught him that marriage unites two families, not merely two souls' fleeting passion. Valentina appeared in a pearl-white wedding gown, delicate as a midnight butterfly dancing on the breeze. Her golden hair was swept into a low chignon, a few tendrils framing her face, accentuating her regal yet mysterious beauty. Her eyes glittered with a trace of sorrow, an acknowledgement of the wrong they were about to commit. Yet she could not stop. Julian's trembling hand closed around the bouquet of white roses. He inhaled their faded scent of hope. Soft music swelled. The violin's gentle melody wove through the distant slap of waves against the hull. As Valentina took each deliberate step toward him, the vast ocean seemed to understand their loneliness. She offered a shy smile, lips pressed together to contain her sadness. Julian met her at the illuminated dais where he had vowed, "I will stand by you, regardless of every barrier." His voice emerged softly, yet with firm resolve. His own mantra. "This is the life I choose, even if it destroys everything." The scene off Santa Monica's shore was ethereal and enchanting, but to Julian, it felt hollow. He heard waves licking the yacht's side, the only reminder of the world's existence. The captain's horn signaled the ceremony's end. Valentina extended her small hand. Her eyes shone with fragile faith. Julian grasped it tightly, as though imparting every ounce of warmth into her palm, reassuring her they were not alone. Nearby, a cadre of reporters lurked in a concealed cabin. The first images of this clandestine wedding streamed over 4G, igniting social media like wildfire. Headlines taunted the bigamous bridegroom across news sites and feeds. Julian Warwick of Warwick Enterprises, the kingpin of finance, was accused of abandoning his pregnant wife to pursue a new love with Valentina Marquez, a West Coast fashion designer. Scathing comments blared from phone screens. Betrayal. Unfit to be a father. And Julian's heart clenched. Shortly thereafter, Victor Warwick, cold as steel, summoned his son to One Penn Plaza. In the chill corridor, Julian's footsteps echoed like funeral tolls. He was ushered into an opulent boardroom where his father awaited, afternoon light slicing shadows across the marble floor. Victor rose, sweat glistening on his brow beneath an imperious expression. "What have you done, Julian?" His words fell like a slab of granite. Julian answered, voice trembling yet resolute. "Father, I am free to choose my own life." But Victor only shook his head, lips trembling. "Free? Do you think you can use Warwick Enterprises' fortunes to conceal every misstep? Have you forgotten that our family's reputation is sacred property, not to be cast aside recklessly?" His gaze struck like lightning, threatening to sever all ties. "If you persist down this path, you will be disinherited. Warwick Enterprises has no place for traitors." Julian's pulse pounded. He looked at the man who had once embodied honor and duty. Now that figure seemed alien and unyielding. Julian realized he had sacrificed too much. Sophia's love, his unborn child's security, the pride of his heritage. And now, standing before his father, he faced a dire decision: continue with Valentina and lose his family, or return to salvage a shattered marriage and accept the responsibilities of fatherhood. Outside, the waves continued their steady rhythm. Julian drew a deep breath, clinging to his last vestige of calm. He recalled Sophia's hopeful gaze when she told him she was pregnant, his mother's gentle smile, the seaside cottage in Cape Cod where she had taken refuge, and the fierce, perilous love he shared with Valentina. All these images churned within his chest. The negotiation reached no resolution. Victor laid the contract on the table. Its sole clause read, "Renounce all rights in exchange for forgiveness." Julian looked up, eyes clouded amid the storm. He knew he could not have both lives. In utter stillness, he folded the paper and met his father's gaze. "Father, I need time." Victor nodded, still stern but with a flicker of compassion in his eyes. He understood that no power on earth could force his son to live a life not his own. Yet that agreement served as a stark warning. Julian's path had narrowed to a single perilous road. As sunlight faded through the meeting room's window, Julian stepped out, heart aching. His wedding to Valentina, however lavish, had stripped him of his most precious inheritance, faith in love and duty. And from that moment, he realized, the journey to reclaim himself, to restore trust and heal wounds, would be the greatest trial of his life. Sophia stepped into the grand foyer of the Metropolitan Museum, just as crystal chandeliers scattered light across the marble floors. She stood there amid a sea of tuxedos and glittering gowns, yet all else seemed to fade before the radiant figure of a pregnant woman. Her sapphire blue silk dress traced the curve of her belly, crafting an image both proud and unbowed amid the opulent surroundings. Her chestnut hair was swept neatly behind her neck, and her eyes glowed with resolve that pierced every gaze. Sophia's footsteps whispered over the red carpet. Each onlooker paused as she passed, some surprised, some curious, some with a flicker of sympathy. They stared at her belly, the mark of new life soon to arrive, and wondered about the story behind this striking entrance. Only weeks earlier, Sophia had fled Manhattan, abandoning a luxurious apartment and a powerful husband. Now she returned not merely for her own dignity, but to safeguard the most sacred rights of herself and her child. Across the room, Julian conversed with business partners. Dressed immaculately, hair slicked back, his face was pale, evidence of sleepless nights. when a flash of light swept past the tall windows. Julian's breath caught as he recognized the familiar silhouette. He stared at Sophia in stunned silence, striving to maintain his cool demeanor, yet betraying unmistakable confusion. His heart clenched. She had come back, after every deception, after the yacht wedding, after the scandalous headlines, and now she strode into the hall as a living declaration. "I am no longer afraid." Beside Julian, Valentina gripped his hand, her lips pressed firm, her eyes flickering between passion and fear of exposure. Yet Sophia allowed no one to bar her path. She advanced to the central dais, where the microphone awaited Victor Warwick's brief remarks. The crowd paused mid-toast, champagne flutes suspended in mid-air, as they turned to her in mixed anticipation. Clara Hensley, Sophia's lawyer and steadfast friend, followed in a simple black sheath, her posture exuding the seriousness of justice and protection. Clara inclined her head politely to the organizers, then stood silently beside Sophia, ready to support her. Every camera lens and smartphone now fixed upon the two women. A hush fell, as if time itself had paused. Sophia drew a steady breath. Her heartbeat thundered like a drum presaging tragedy. She did not shout. She did not wail. She stood eerily calm. Victor Warwick took the stage, stern gaze sweeping the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to introduce Julian Warwick's new wife, Miss Valentina Marquez. And today, it appears..." His voice faltered as his eyes landed on Sophia. The entire hall froze. Sophia tapped the spare microphone. Her voice rang out, warm, yet incisive. "Good evening. I am Sophia Warwick. I stand before you tonight not only as a mother, but as an American citizen, a woman demanding justice and the rights of my child." Her words resonated through the room, prompting furrowed brows. Several photographers raised their cameras, capturing this historic moment. Julian's eyes widened in shock. He began awkwardly. "Sophia, this..." But Sophia raised her hand to silence him. Applause erupted, but it was not celebratory. It was fractured, half the audience skeptical, half in admiration. Sophia continued, voice husky. "When I left, I offered Julian one condition. He would care for me and our child as best he could if I chose to stay. I spent these weeks in Cape Cod seeking peace and counsel from Clara. I have returned to enforce that agreement, and if necessary, I will use every legal measure to protect this child." The tension in the air became tangible. Victor's face drained of color, unprepared for his former daughter-in-law's public indictment. Julian glanced at Clara, then at Sophia, his eyes torn between love and duty. Valentina gripped his hand again, but this time in warning. "You put her on the stage before so many. There is no turning back now." Sophia brushed away tears, not from anger, but from the pain of this public moment. "I love my child. I loved Julian when he was a devoted husband. But when our family's peace was shattered by lies, I could no longer remain silent." She turned to the crowd. "I hope Warwick Enterprises and everyone here will stand for justice and enduring family bonds, not scandal and deceit." 2 sharp rounds of applause followed, underscored by murmurs from the haute monde. Some partners reached for Clara's card. Others turned away, unwilling to involve themselves in the Warwick family's private turmoil. Julian felt cold sweat bead on his brow, his heart shatter. He longed to rush to Sophia, to hold her and apologize. But Valentina tugged him back, voice trembling. "Not yet." The gala dissolved into chaos. Media crews set up microphones on the auxiliary stage. Clara guided Sophia behind the scenes, gentle yet resolute. "We did the right thing. You and your child will be protected." Sophia nodded, hand resting on her belly. "Thank you, Clara. Because of you, I no longer fear stepping in here. As the lights dimmed, Sophia and Clara exited the main doors. Her stilettos left confident imprints on the red carpet, a statement that she faced the challenge head-on, not in retreat. Behind them, Julian watched, heart heavy. Valentina stood by, gaze unfocused. They had lost not only the past, but a future never fully realized. In that moment, the Met's great hall bore witness to a mother's determination. Sophia had returned not as a fading figure, but as the embodiment of strength and hope. She had awakened the conscience of an entire dynasty, laying the foundation for the fight to protect the child yet to be born. This return would change everything. Amid the chilly expanse of the top-floor boardroom at Warwick Enterprises headquarters, the harsh fluorescent lights bore down upon the gleaming mahogany table. Sophia sat erect, one hand cradling her pregnant belly, her eyes fixed upon the once untouchable heir of the dynasty, Julian. At her side, Clara Hensley, resolute attorney and friend who never abandoned her, nodded solemnly before opening a thick dossier. The dry rustle of turning pages echoed through the stifling hush. Sophia drew a deep breath, feeling each tiny heartbeat within her womb. She spoke, voice calm yet as sharp as steel. "Julian, we will draft a binding agreement. Our child must be legally recognized, bearing the Warwick name, and you must immediately terminate all marital ties with Valentina Marquez." The moment her words rang out, Julian's eyes flickered with tension. He clenched his fist atop the table, veins standing out on his hand. His heart seized at the force of her declaration. Clara added, tone grave, "All legal proceedings must be finalized within 48 hours. Any delay will constitute a breach of this agreement, and Ms. Sophia will employ every legal recourse to protect her child's rights." Clara met Julian's gaze with a challenge. "Do you understand the consequences?" Julian nodded faintly, his silence and the beads of sweat on his forehead betraying his inner turmoil. Behind the sealed door, Valentina lingered like a specter. She had passed by the corridor and caught Sophia's and Clara's voices through the crack. Her heart pounded wildly as the reality of betrayal surged through her. She pressed herself against the wall, listening. Recognize the child, end the marriage, complete the paperwork. Each term felt like salt searing her soul. A minute later, she flung open the boardroom door. Her emerald eyes glowed with anger, her golden hair catching the fluorescent glare. The room jolted to life at the clang of iron against frame. Staff and lawyers jumped in surprise. Julian's sweat-dampened hair stood on end as he snapped his head up. Sophia's composed demeanor fractured into stunned bewilderment. Valentina strode in, her stiletto heels clattering against the marble floor. She offered no greeting. Instead, she marched to Julian, anguish and fury writ large upon her face. Grabbing his hand, she cried out, her voice cracking. "Julian! How dare you!" Before dozens of astonished witnesses, she drew the wedding ring, once a symbol of love and hope, and flung it onto the floor. It spun and clattered in a pool of light. The sharp ring of metal was like a tolling funeral bell. Julian froze. His eyes darted frantically, seeking refuge. Tension snapped. Some attendees leapt to their feet, others fanned their phones to film. Sophia watched Valentina, then looked to Julian. His cheeks were pale, and he teetered on the brink of collapse. Valentina's voice dropped to a fierce whisper, each word a blade. "You destroyed me. You hurt me. And now you intend to cast it all away as if it never happened." Tears slid down her cheeks, yet her tone remained defiantly strong. She whirled and stormed from the room, leaving Julian suspended between pitying and scornful gazes. The spectacle spread across social media in an instant. Video of Valentina hurling the ring and her scathing condemnation resonated like gunfire through online communities. By the next trading session, Warwick Enterprises stock plunged nearly 15% within hours. Headlines screamed, "Warwick Dynasty Marital Crisis. Billion-dollar scandal at Warwick Enterprises. Julian Warwick, the bigamist heir. All the lights of Wall Street turned to the tower where Julian stood, pale as he stared at his phone. Amid market chaos, Julian's phone rang with a call from a Brooklyn hospital. The trembling voice on the line said, "Mr. Warwick, Mrs. Sophia is in labor. Please come quickly." His chest tightened as though gripped by invisible hands. Cold sweat formed on his brow. He hung up, collapsed onto a black leather chair in the boardroom, forehead buried on the table, knuckles white on the wood. The frantic ring of his assistant's phone went unanswered. Time seemed to warp. The boardroom lights blurred in his vision. Julian erupted from his seat, legs unsteady, and bolted down the stairwell. He hurtled through the long corridor, past glass walls framing the vast city. Raindrops began to patter on the windows. He ignored his coat, intent solely on the wife enduring labor and the child about to be born. In the deserted Brooklyn hospital hallway, Julian stumbled into the waiting area, utterly lost. He broke down before the sign marked maternity ward. Each step toward that door added to the weight crushing his chest. Clara, who had arrived ahead, rushed to embrace him. "Sophia is okay, but she needs you," she whispered. Julian nodded, pain and determination mingling in his eyes. In that moment, a nurse emerged, cradling a newborn swaddled in a white blanket. Julian gasped and knelt, tears brimming. When allowed inside, he held his newborn daughter, Lily, to his chest. The scent of colostrum and soft baby skin overwhelmed him. He choked back emotion. The infant's eyes fluttered open, clear as morning dew. Julian trembled as he laid his finger against her tiny hand. A pure love surged through him. All his wrongs, all his deceptions, all the scandal, they vanished with Lily's first cry. He felt each fragile breath, each tentative heartbeat. Tears fell, but not from guilt, rather from the sacred bond of family, from an unbreakable duty, from the greatest sacrifice of his life. Julian looked to Clara, then to Lily. His voice, hoarse with feeling, whispered, "You are the only reason I must change." Clara smiled approvingly. He gently stroked Lily's hair. Outside, the rain continued its steady rhythm, a drum beat heralding a new beginning. Julian faced the truth. He could no longer live for himself. He must live for his child, for his family, and for the heart now awakened by the storm. And in that holy moment, Warwick Enterprises ceased to be merely an impersonal empire. It became the sanctuary to which he would return on his path of redemption, healing, and the journey ahead with his daughter, Lily, the bright beacon at the end of his darkest tunnel. Julian sat at the small desk in his modest office, fingers trembling as he held the pen to sign the separation agreement. The warm amber light fell upon each solemn line. A lifelong commitment to financial support for Lily. A promise to participate in every milestone of his daughter's life. A vow never to let her feel the absence of her father's warmth. Each signature was a burdened pledge. His heart constricted, yet he knew it was necessary. Shortly thereafter, Valentina appeared in the shared conference room. She wore a long ash-gray coat, her golden hair cascading over her shoulders. Red streaks still rimmed her eyes from her earlier outburst. In a detached tone, she read the terms. She would accept a generous settlement to withdraw, waive any legal challenge to their marriage's validity, and remain silent thereafter. Valentina nodded, a mocking smile curling her lips. "I've taken all I need." She closed the folder, rose, and walked out, leaving Julian alone in the oppressive air of his own redemption. In the main hall, Victor Warwick, his face as cold as steel, faced the press's glare. He stepped to the podium, placed his hand on the microphone, and spoke in a measured, reluctant tone. "I assure you, all personal matters within the family have been resolved. Warwick Enterprises remains committed to sustainable growth and to preserving your trust." Cameras lingered on the fine lines of worry etched into his brow. Victor knew this was the only way to salvage the company's reputation and the family's pride. With the formalities concluded, Julian packed his documents and left the towering Upper East Side residence forever behind. He moved into a small Brooklyn apartment, a bright living room, a cozy kitchenette, and a snug bedroom. Here, he began anew from zero. He attended his first parenting class, where young fathers sat in a circle learning from a child psychology expert how to cradle an infant, how to bottle feed, how to articulate each precious name. Lily. He took meticulous notes and practiced alone with a teddy bear, even setting alarms for the middle of the night to be ready for his daughter's needs. Each weekend, Julian crossed the Brooklyn Bridge to the hospital, where Sophia and their baby recuperated. Entering the room, he found Lily nestled in a pale pink blanket, her tiny eyes fluttering. Sophia sat beside her, her gaze still bearing the scars of heartbreak, but her gentle smile had returned. "Here's our daughter," she murmured, offering Lily into his arms. Julian hesitated, then enfolded both mother and child in a tender embrace. The warmth of Lily's skin, the scent of fresh milk, and the soft scent of Sophia's hair intertwined, marking his first true act of atonement. He was now a father, and perhaps, for the first time, he would not miss another moment of his child's life. Sophia watched Julian's careful devotion. She recalled the powerful, work-consumed man he had been and marveled at his transformation. He patiently learned to change diapers, to soothe Lily's cries. Each time Lily smiled in his arms, Julian's eyes lit with genuine joy. Sophia smiled, her heart softening. Though she still bore her wounded past, she had found strength in her role as mother. From betrayal's pain, she had forged resilience. Time passed, and Julian settled into his new life. Afternoons found him strolling through Prospect Park with Lily's pram under lush greenery. Lily babbled, "Da, da," and Julian's voice caught with emotion as he tapped her tiny palm and whispered, "Daddy's here, sweetheart." Sophia stood nearby, her eyes shining with hope. They were no longer husband and wife, yet they had discovered a bond stronger than any former romance, the bond of parenthood. Valentina vanished from their lives. She departed with what she desired, leaving no further stain. Her image faded from Julian's mind, replaced by the sacred love of fatherhood. And in his heart, his promise to Lily echoed ceaselessly, "You come first." One crisp autumn evening, Julian held Lily and placed her on a small desk beside his laptop. He drafted an email to Clara, the steadfast friend who had guided Sophia, typing, "Thank you for helping us reclaim our family." Lily yawned softly, eyelids drooping. Julian tucked her into her bassinet and sank onto a small sofa. Outside the window, Brooklyn's lights shimmered. His heart felt light. The story of Julian, Sophia, and Lily did not conclude with a triumphant fanfare, but with a peaceful, warm moment. Julian realized that true happiness does not reside in reputation, nor in the pretense of freedom, but in each smile of his child, in forgiveness, and in family unity. He had atoned and embarked on a new journey, the journey of a father, of a simple yet love-filled family. If this story has touched your heart, please hit like, share the video with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring journeys. Comment below. Do you believe Julian deserves forgiveness? Your support empowers us to continue telling stories that move the soul.